monsters, madness, and magic.
All right, folks, welcome to the Monsters, Madness, and Magic podcast. I'm your host, Justin, and we're back. Sorry for the delay in the release of the episode. It's been quite a hectic month. Had a lot of reschedules, but anyway, we're about to get rolling again. So in this episode, I chat with actor, musician, and comedian Dave Ward about Disney Channel's So Weird, Dragon Ball Z, working with Jim Varney, getting his start in the entertainment industry, and more. As always, thank you all for listening out there. And without further ado, here you go. All right, Dave, take us back in time. You're a youngster. Are you a book reader, fort builder, troublemaker, or all the above?
I was a book reader.
Mm.
The very first Christmas gift I ever remember was a book that my aunt Nellie gave me. Called Heroes, and it was short stories about everyone from James Doolittle, the pilot during the war, to Pavel Nurme, the great Finnish runner. It was just, and that hooked me. I read every day.
Do you have maybe a genre or a writer that you lean towards? Like a personal favorite?
Yeah, I like. I've read all the Tolkien. That's Lord of the Rings, and all of those were big for me. And now I really like the Reacher novels. And right now the name of the writer is eluding me.
Jack Reacher.
Yeah, and I've read all of his books and I've watched all the shows for that are available. But I like the spy stuff. I like the action adventure books.
Gotcha.
But I've read all the classics and Robinson Crusoe and Little Women and all of those books. That was such a big part of my life growing up because I'm pre-TV.
Exactly. Yeah.
We were the last family on the block to get a television. My dad figured it was a fad.
Whereabouts did you grow up? Did you grow up in Ireland at all? Or did you?
No, in Toronto.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I was born in Scotland. And I came over first when I was 9 months old, and then my mom took me back. She got pregnant, and I was still a baby. And then came back when I was 3 years old, and been here ever since.
Gotcha. Now, would you say that either your parents or someone in your family, were they artistically inclined? Do you think that's where your roots come from?
No, not really. My mom was a housewife and dedicated to raising her 6 kids. And didn't have time to do anything artistic. And my dad was a hunter and had no interest in, no musical abilities, artistic abilities, but he loved country music. Hank Williams and George Jones and all those old guys. That's the music I grew up on.
So when did you first pick up an instrument or get an interest in it?
I always had an interest. I played harmonica when I was 12 years old. Some friends of mine were doing this thing at the First Avenue Baptist Church harmonica band. And I wanted to do that because after on Saturdays, they'd go and play at an old folks home. And then they'd go out to the band leader, Tom, to his house. And he had a big house and he had like hockey sticks and stuff lined up in his driveway. And he gave us hot dogs and pop and that's the only reason I wanted to do it. So I joined the First Avenue Baptist Church harmonica band, even though we weren't Baptists. And I loved it, but I was really bad. So Tom used to say to me, just do this, but don't blow. So I did that till I finally figured out how to make it work. And then I played harmonica for forever and ever. I played some blues harp and straight harp, whatever came across me. And to this day, I still have lots of harps and I play them pretty much regularly. So I did that. I picked up the guitar for the first time. I was doing a TV show called So Weird on the Disney Channel. And because we're working with kids, all of the kids scenes get done first. So sometimes I'd be sitting there in my trailer for 8, hours, 9 hours before I even walk in front of the camera, because they have to the kids are only allowed to work 8 hours, and they can work us until we puke. So,
Yeah.
and it was different. So one day I was sitting there, or actually my driver picked me up in the morning, and as we were driving to work, I look over and he had a mandolin sitting on the front seat, and I'm in the back. So I reached over, I picked up the mandolin, and I said, how do I make a chord? Kind of told me as we were driving, and I kind of fooled around with the mandolin. The next day when I get to work, I still have the guitar. I found this classic, little classical guitar in my trailer.
Wow.
And he came by, the driver, and he said, here, this is for you. So he showed me a few chords, and that's what I did, like pretty much 8 hours a day, 4 days a week. And I just loved it. Now I have way too many guitars.
Yes.
You only play one at a time.
That's how it happens.
But, yeah, and that started that. And that was 1999.
I'm definitely got some questions about So Weird, but before we get there, this is something I like to ask everyone. Well, what scared you as a kid?
Not much. I was, I played every sport all the time. I was in leagues. But even if we're at the park, that was that time, because TV sucked.
Yeah.
There was nothing to watch, and we didn't even have a TV. I was like 13 when my dad finally decided to buy a TV. I'd seen it before in my friends' houses and stuff, but nobody sat around watching TV.
Right.
We were outside all the time. We get up in the morning and we have breakfast, and my mom would say, go out and don't come back till lunch unless you can find someone to feed you. So that's what we did. And I lived on a street. There must have been 40 kids lived on our street.
Wow.
And we had this big empty lot in the middle of the street. And we played everything there. Some crazy stuff too. We put someone in a big cardboard box if someone got a fridge or a stove, and then we would take our homemade bows and arrows and shoot them into the box with somebody in it. So it was like, not the smartest thing, but it seemed to work for us at the time.
Right. Well, you just said, you're not watching much TV and all, but where does the interest in entertainment or, maybe trying to become an actor yourself, where does that arise?
Well, so I'm trying to think of, I can't recall exactly the year. As an adult, I was in the hotel business. I was a food and beverage manager at the Anchor Inn in Campbell River. And then I came down and I was the manager at the Waterfront nightclub in Victoria. A friend of mine who produced comedy, he opened up the first Yuck Yucks in Victoria, and he asked me to run it. So I went in, and the second week we were open, one of the acts didn't show up. So I'm not giving people back their money. So I went on stage, I told a couple of jokes, and people made the mistake of laughing. And that was it. From there, every night I gave myself stage time, just a few minutes here and there. And then I had a big blowout with the overall bigwig, Mark Breslin, who owns a piece of all the Yuck Yucks. And he came out and he said, we had a real clinch. I'm 6'4" and 270 pounds. And Mark Breslin is like 5'1" and 90 pounds. And he was really rude to me. He was, and I just said, here, I handed him the keys and I left. I went on the road, and then I got banned. I couldn't get a gig here in Canada. Yuck Yucks had put out the word. So I crossed the border to one of the guys who had come up and worked at the Yuck Yucks. And I started going around. I worked the Pacific Northwest for about a year and a half, putting my show together. And by then I was a headliner, and I was working all over the U.S. And finally the Yuck Yucks didn't interfere with what I was doing. And I came back. I worked out of Edmonton for Bob Angeli and the Comedy Factory. And I worked, I think, every town in Alberta and Saskatchewan. places that weren't even towns. You know, it's like some kind of mining town, and
Yeah.
I'm working in a cool trailer
On an oil rig somewhere.
and I'm thinking, geez, my career is taking off. So I'm doing that. I'm hosting a talent contest at the Mr. Sport Hotel in Vancouver, and it was good. I'm doing my thing, bringing people up, and uh, I get off the stage, and this woman comes up to me and says, you know, have you ever done any acting? And I said, oh yeah, I did a play in high school. I said, yeah, would you like to do some more? I said, sure. And she sent me out 2 days later, and I got the very first thing I auditioned for, a Chevron commercial where I wore this big engine suit. Run, Rodney, run. Rodney, the human engine. And that was it. I put a whole bunch of, I worked pretty steady after that, so much that I wasn't able to do stand-up anymore.
Mm.
Every time I would book a tour, I'd get a gig. So it's, you know,
Yeah.
it pays a lot more money doing TV and movies than it does doing stand-up. Though I made a good living doing stand-up. But this was, and eventually I just put the whole comedy thing to the side.
Right. Was it your intention to work your way into the voiceover side of things, or did it just happen naturally?
Well, you know what? It did. The Chevron commercial I did was with a fellow named Miles Ramsey, who was the Ramsey in Griffin, Gibson and Ramsey, one of the largest production houses in Vancouver. And a week after we did that commercial, he called me up, went in, and I did a voice ad for him. And then I worked steady from that, and that hooked me into the cartoon stuff. So I was doing things from Me, Ed, and Eddie. I guess Sitting Duck was my most consistent. I did every episode of that. I played Aldo the alligator, who lived with a bunch of, and it's a great little thing. That was sort of like claymation kind of thing.
Yeah.
Cartoon. I did so much work, lots of post stuff, Japanese stuff.
Yeah, dubbing stuff.
Dragon Ball Z I did for 4 or 5 years, like every week. So
What do you recall about that Dragon Ball Z audition? Was it typical?
I never auditioned.
Never auditioned. They just called
No,
you.
they just knew who I was, and they said, "Hey, we want you to do this role." I played several characters. Ox King of Fire Mountain was my main character, but I also did Kubla Kai and numerous monsters and growly things and that kind of stuff.
Prior to doing the stand up, you had no acting training or no drama school. You just did that play in high school.
Yeah, that was it. But I was always out there. When I was a bartender, before I got into management, people would come and you couldn't get a seat at my bar, because I'm telling jokes, I'm talking to people, telling stories, and I've never been especially shy.
So there is a credit of yours that I want to ask about, Dave. I'm a huge Jim Varney fan growing up, and I saw that
Yeah.
you were on Ernest Rides Again. Did you have any interaction with Jim at all? How
Yeah,
was he?
I had lunch with him actually.
Oh, wow.
I was there for 2 or 3 days playing this construction worker on, and he's coming by riding it's honestly, I can't even remember the plot of the story, and I've never watched it. I've never watched any of the things I've done, really. I know what I did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a real nice man. And again, I rode on a roller coaster with Mel Gibson when I did a movie with him, and it was being shot at the PNE, and we kind of hit it off because I don't know, little guys are kind of attracted to me. So we started talking, we hung out, and then Henry Winkler cast me in the Dead Man's Gun, and that got me the So Weird gig because Henry was the producer.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So it's all connected. I'm looking for the right word. It's it's all about connections.
Yeah.
Once you get your foot in, then it seems like everybody wants to use you. It's just getting that first shot.
Right.
Challenge. Honestly, I've never been that focused. You know, it was not a do or die for me. It wasn't a thing. I wasn't going to be heartbroken when it stopped, which it is kind of stopped. You know? I've gotten old and my health issues have kind of moved me to the side.
With So Weird specifically, what do you remember most about, working on that show? Would you say that was a happy, great time in your
Oh,
career?
it was so much fun.
Mm.
I mean, working with the kids who are really great, and Mac, she was a lot of fun too. The whole thing, Belinda Metz. I mean, we had a great time because the adults spent a lot of time together. Because, like I told you earlier, they shoot all the scenes with the kids first. So if you're not in a scene with the kids, you just kind of sit around. So we'd all be hanging around the circus,
Yeah.
talking and making music. Oh,
And that's pretty cool because if I remember correctly, that was part of the show. It was a traveling,
yes,
it was
that's
a
it.
traveling
Mac
musician.
was the lead singer, and she had the band, and they traveled in this big bus, which I drove. I played one of the characters' father, but I was also the head roadie. So
Yeah.
I drove the bus and set things up and did all that kind of stuff. Though they only let me drive the bus once because I really sucked at it. I mean, turning corners in a 45-foot bus I found very challenging, and the curbs took a beating.
I wonder whatever happened to that bus. It's
I
still
don't
out
know.
there somewhere.
Yeah, someone else will use it somewhere. But it was,
So
that was a really good show. We had did some really interesting things too.
yeah,
The storylines. It was the number one show on the Disney Channel for 3 years.
yeah, I remember it vividly. That's my era.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that always comes up about that show, is the casting change with Kara that happened. I think it was season 3, maybe. Do you remember
That's when
what was the
Alex
reasoning
came in.
behind that?
She just wanted to get back to, she got a boyfriend, and then she really wanted to be in California. She didn't want to be up here in Canada. And so that's my understanding. I don't know if that's the fact. It's just because at the end of the season, second season, everything was good. We had a nice big party. She was happy, blah, blah, blah. And then we open up the next season and she's not there. So I never even got to talk to her about it.
Wow, yeah. That was
And Alex came in as the new character. And it went another year. But at that point, Disney only did 3 seasons on everything they did.
yeah.
So, but it was good. I loved it. I had a great time. Good people. Bought my house.
Hey, can't complain there.
Nope.
So, Dave, out of all the projects you've worked on, whether screen, booth, what have you, what would you say is the most challenging that you worked on? Is there one you lost a lot of sleep over?
Not really. My acting style is really just Squatch happy, Squatch sad, Squatch angry. That's it. I never created any character. When I first started out, I worked with a director who on this little film, and I only had just a walk on, 2-line kind of bit. James, oh God, I can see his face too. He said to me, he said, "Don't ever create a character because you are one." And that's all I've ever done.
That's good.
So, and it worked well for me.
Yeah, exactly. What you just said might answer my next question, which is, what's the best acting advice you've received and who gave it to you?
So that James Whitmore Jr., that was the name of the director. And I can't remember what the thing was because I had just a bit part. I didn't even read the script. I only read my lines. So then that was it, because there's no point. I got 3 lines.
This is another question I like to ask everyone. Have you ever had an experience that you would consider supernatural or paranormal?
Well, my sister has her whole life been involved in spiritual weirdo stuff. And she claims to read people's auras and all that kind of stuff. And I went to her house one day and I was sitting there because her house was between my house and in my school. This is when I was in high school. And I went in and I was sitting there in her living room, and this vase fell off the mantelpiece for no reason. And she always told me that house was haunted, that there were spirits living in that house. And so I didn't go visit her very often, only in the daytime.
Hey, that counts.
Yeah.
So, have you seen any good movies lately? Do you like watching movies still?
The last movie we went to was the last Star Wars movie that came out in the theater. I'm not big on going to the theater, but I got Prime, and so I've been watching there. I just finished doing all the Reacher movies, that series, and I just started in on Jack Ryan. I like that stuff, and I read all the books, so I was quite interested to see how it would transpose onto film. And unlike the movie that had Tom Cruise as Reacher, which did not work for me at all.
Yeah, too small.
Look, he's 6'8",
yeah,
300 pounds.
I thought the same thing.
The guy that got playing him in the series is 6'8" and probably 270, and just ripped. And that's how I had always envisioned Reacher, and it was great. I watched everything that's available, and I thought, wow, they did a great job with that.
Yeah, I love the new Reacher. That guy's freaking huge. I can't think of his name right. Alan Rickson, I think his name.
Alan Rickson, that's it. Yeah, he did a great job. It's exactly how I pictured him from reading the books.
Gotcha. Are you still playing any music, or do you still play live at all?
Well, I was up until my actually even before my surgery, because I for the last year and a half, I've had this peripheral artery disease. So 8 years ago, I had a quintuple bypass. 5 of my arteries were blocked. So they put in 5 new arteries, which they took from my legs. And then the same thing ended up happening in my legs, the blockages in my groin. So they did the right side of my groin 2 months ago, and I'm just finally up and walking around now. I had all kinds of medical equipment stuck on me and trying to get me to heal. So I haven't been going out much. Prior to that, I went out all the time. My paid gigs are in the old folks' homes. I go and I play them all that stuff, Johnny Cash and all those country kind of things. I had some Kenny Rogers. I'm having a brain fart. Yeah, so I play all that old kind of stuff, for the seniors. So that was it. I go out and play all the time. Lots of people, I know lots of musicians, and they let me sit in, and I play with them and do that kind of stuff. And lots of open mics. I write my own stuff. So it's a chance to get out and let people hear what I'm doing.
Right. And I know you mentioned to me in the email that you wrote that Christmas children's story a couple years ago. Do you still write? Do you plan on writing anything?
I still write. I write every day. I'm working on another project, sort of mirrors my existence, so, but that's turning out to be a long story.
So when it comes to writing, would you say you're a heavy outliner, or do you like to sit down and just go with the flow and fix it later?
Yeah, I'm an inspirational writer. Like a lot of the songs that I've written are triggered by something like a mother's question, with all of the stuff that's going on, with all the hate and things in the world. I just had to put it out there, and it just came. It was all there. I sat down and I wrote it in one session and made only 3 or 4 changes till it was done. But I usually write the words first. And then I try to get the music to fit.
That's interesting. I speak with musicians too, and I usually ask if they've ever written lyrics first, and most of them say they haven't.
No, because words are all, like I said, I've been reading my whole life. words mean a lot to me, and I'm pretty good at using them, except of course when I can't remember someone's name. and yeah, it just seemed the natural way for me,
Right.
and then I just sort of I start singing it. How can I make that work? And then I work on the music.
So, well, Dave, just to put a bow on this thing here, do you have anything on the horizon that you'd like to share? Any records or any shows or anything in the pipeline?
No, you know what? I'm 67 now and I'm retired. And, I'm still, my name's out there. If something comes up, I'll do it. Other than that, really, I'm just kicking back. I'm enjoying life. I got my wife and our 2 little dogs, and we stay very active. We travel a lot, you know. We did a cruise last year. We were also in Mexico for my granddaughter's quinceañera, and it's just been a great trip. We're also in New Jersey for a month for a 86th birthday party, and then our cousin got married, so it was 2.5 weeks between that and that. So we stayed there the whole time. Had a great time. We have a lot of family down in that area.
Can't ask for more than that, man. I'm glad you're doing well, and I wish you good health going forward. Big fan of your work.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the chance to talk to you.
I appreciate you, Dave. Well, you have a great rest of your day, man.
I will. You too.
All right, bye-bye.
Peace out.